You were never meant to be mastered by your own fire. What burns within you is not sin, it is signal. That ache in your flesh, that pulse in your blood, that silent craving you don't speak of, is not the mark of a weak man. It is the ungoverned cry of divine power, misplaced, misnamed, misunderstood. You have called it lust. The world has called it addiction. But I tell you now, what you feel is the unassigned current of creation itself, waiting to be given form. And unless you name it rightly, it will name you. It will use you. It will exhaust you. But if you dare to turn inward, dare to hold the flame in your chest without letting it escape through your fingers, then the very hunger that haunted you will become the sword that builds your kingdom. I speak not to the tame. I speak to the one who has wandered in secret shadows, who has bowed before images and scrolled through shame, not because he was evil, but because he was empty. I speak to the man who has mistaken appetite for identity, who has chased sensation to silence his soul. You were never addicted to the image. You were addicted to the feeling of power you thought it gave you. But now I call you back to your center, not to suppress the flame, but to govern it, not to deny your hunger, but to anoint it with purpose. Because there is a difference between the man who feeds on lust and the man who forges with it. One devours, the other builds, one leaks, the other contains, one is a slave. The other is a priest of divine fire. I speak to the latter, even if he has forgotten who he is. You were never called to be soft. You were never meant to beg for control. The impulse you feel is not weakness. It is unrefined royalty. What you do with it decides everything. Because lust is not what ruins men. Lust is what builds them when it is reined in, blessed, and transmuted. What you feel is God in raw form, and unless you clothe it with intention, it will strip you of vision. So I tell you this, you are not lustful, you are powerful, you are not broken, you are burning, and your future is waiting for you to rise, not with shame, not with guilt, not with hiding, but with fire in your eyes and mastery in your breath. From this moment forward, you will no longer run from the desire. You will look it in the face. You will bless it. You will own it, and you will choose the legacy it was always meant to fuel. You think you're weak because you can't stop. You think you're undisciplined because you keep going back. You think your struggle is with lust, but your true struggle is with leakage. You are not overwhelmed by desire. You are leaking divine voltage through every unconscious gesture, through every unspoken wound, through every moment you forget who you are. Lust is not the issue. Lack of identity is. You were never taught to see yourself as sacred. You were taught to see yourself as a beast to be tamed, as a sinner to be shamed, as a flesh-bound mind trying to obey rules you never truly understood. So you hid, you fragmented, you gave yourself away in silence. You told yourself it was harmless. You told yourself no one would know, but you knew. You could feel the drain, not just in your body, but in your spirit. You could feel your days begin to blur, your vision began to dim, your fire began to flicker, and every time you reached for another false flame, another image, another escape, you weren't sinning, you were leaking. This is not about morality, this is about power, this is about containment. Every act of unconscious lust, every moment of private surrender was not a failure of willpower, it was a failure of memory. You forgot that the feeling rising in your body was not meant to end in release. It was meant to end in creation. It was the call to build, to declare, to focus. But because no one told you how to translate that fire, you spent your years burning at both ends, mistaking emptiness for freedom. Lust is what you feel when your creative energy is misdirected. You were not meant to waste that frequency on pixels, on fantasies, on moments that leave no legacy. You were meant to take that charge, that ache, that flood of presence, and speak with it, walk with it, shape reality with it. Lust is not meant to be buried. It is meant to be consecrated. But instead of consecration, you chose coping. Instead of alchemy, you chose escape. And the more you escaped, the more you needed to escape. Because what you were truly starving for was yourself. The real you. The king beneath the craving, the builder beneath the beast, the creator beneath the consumer. And every moment of unconscious lust was not a betrayal of others. It was a betrayal of your own becoming. But now you see it. You see that the urge was never the enemy. It was the compass. The fire was never wrong. It was just waiting for you to name it rightly. You see how every energy leak dulled your command. You see how it cost you more than you could ever admit. Your voice, your clarity, your presence. And now that ends. Not through suppression, not through shame, but through containment, through remembrance, through divine restraint that does not shrink you, but focuses you. Because when a man learns to hold the fire without letting it consume him, he becomes unshakable. When he stops leaking and starts listening, when he stops chasing and starts channeling, everything begins to orbit around his silence. He no longer moves toward pleasure. Pleasure moves toward him. He no longer craves approval. He emits command. This is what you were always meant to be. Not the one who burns and collapses, but the one who burns and builds. You have been taught that lust is carnal, that it is sin, that it must be tamed, punished, buried, exiled. But I tell you, lust is none of these. Lust is the raw frequency of God before it is given name or form. It is divine imagination breaking through your body, your mind, your nerves, crying not for indulgence, but for incarnation. It is the voltage of the I am rising from within, demanding direction. Lust is not filth. Lust is fire, and fire left ungoverned will destroy a man, but fire, contained and consecrated, will light his throne. The world has lied to you. It told you that lust is a flaw of the flesh, but in truth, it is a signal of creative energy without a mission. It is imagination begging for embodiment. It is divine life force asking to be made visible in the world, not in momentary pleasure, but in lasting creation. The reason it consumes you is because you have not yet chosen to wield it. You have danced around it, hidden it, feared it. But you have not spoken to it. You have not anointed it. You have not told it who it serves. Because the moment you give it purpose, it bends to your word. The moment you say, this power belongs to my legacy, it begins to build. It begins to move differently through your spine, through your breath, through your voice. Your walk changes, your tone deepens, your energy no longer seeks outlets, it begins to magnetize outcomes. And that is the secret no one told you. Lust is the birthplace of vision, when governed by identity. You were made in the image of the Creator, not the reactor, not the addict, the Creator. You are imagination made flesh. And the same way God created the world through word, you create your world through your state. So I ask you, what state are you in when you chase lust? What is your name in that moment? Is it I am sovereign, or is it I am craving? The body obeys the name you whisper. Your world obeys the assumption you wear. So if you continue to feel lust as chaos, then you have not yet chosen your name. You are still passive in your temple. You are still a guest in your own palace. But when you declare, I am the one who converts desire into dominion, then that energy bows to you. It no longer pulls, it pushes your projects, your posture, your precision. Lust then becomes not a drag on your soul, but a crown of sacred power, not something to release, but something to retain and aim. This is the key. Desire is neutral until named. Lust becomes addiction when you do not assign it mission. Lust becomes power when you consecrate it to your becoming. And that consecration begins in silence, in stillness, in reverence. The next time you feel the heat, do not flee from it. Sit in it. Name it. Say, this is the fire that builds my house. This is the ache that forges my voice. This is the presence of God in me, waiting to take shape. Then direct it. Choose where it lives. Choose where it leads. And you will find that what once tormented you now obeys you. Because nothing is stronger than the man who commands his own current. Nothing is more magnetic than the man who governs his own gates. And nothing is more dangerous than the man who can hold his power without needing to prove it. Lust was never your weakness. It was your uncrowned strength. Now that you understand the fire, it is time to hold it. Not to run from it, not to suppress it, not to numb it with distraction or chain it with guilt, but to contain it with authority. The man who becomes dangerous to the world is the man who can feel the full measure of his hunger and not spill a drop. He does not tremble before it. He does not flinch from it. He does not rush to extinguish it. He breathes with it until the flame bows before his name. You must learn to contain. Containment is not repression. Containment is royalty. Containment is the practice of recognizing your own power and refusing to let it leak into lower forms. You wake up with that pulse in your body. Bless it. Feel it. Do not rush to escape it. Sit in it. Breathe through your nose. Close your eyes and say with the quiet authority of a God, "This is mine, and I will not spend it on shadows." Do not let it exit through the same neural grooves that have stolen years of your power. Do not let it dissolve in repetition. Containment is about honoring the voltage until it obeys. Then you must convert. What does that look like? You take the energy that used to chase images and you use it to craft identity. You feel the pull, and instead of moving to release, you move to assume. You close your eyes and enter the end. You feel the wish fulfilled. You speak as the man who already is. That same frequency, that same tension, that same body charge you once used to sedate yourself, you now use it to inhabit your ideal state. Because all power is tension waiting for direction, and now you give it direction. Then comes creation. Once contained and converted, that fire becomes motion. It flows into your tone, your eyes, your pace, your decisions. You become laser focused. Your projects begin to move. Your voice becomes textured with depth. You walk into a room and people sense something, but they don't know what. What they're sensing is not charm. It is charge. The charge of a man who has stopped giving himself away. The charge of a man who creates rather than craves. You begin to build legacy without noise. You no longer need to announce your goals. You no longer need to prove your drive. The very air around you begins to speak. Your presence becomes instruction. And what once seduced you now serves you, because you have taken the energy of lust, the most primal, potent frequency in the body, and turned it into living structure. Do this for 30 days. Every time the hunger comes, don't run. Sit, breathe, contain, convert, create. Let that heat rise, and instead of falling to it, speak to it. This belongs to my future. Say it over and over. This belongs to my future. Let your body burn clean. Let your nervous system stretch to hold more power without leaking. You will suffer at first, yes, because you're not used to holding. You're used to leaking. But the moment you stay inside the fire without flinching, something ancient will awaken in you. You will remember who you are. And from that moment on, you are no longer the man who needs discipline. You are the man who builds kingdoms with energy that once enslaved him. You are no longer lustful. You are legendary. There is a silence that belongs only to kings, not the silence of withdrawal, not the silence of weakness masked by words unsaid, but the silence that contains storms, the silence that holds fire, the silence that bends reality around its center. When a man has truly contained his lust, when he no longer flinches from his own force, when he no longer leaks energy into fantasy or fear or forbidden memory, he begins to glow. His being becomes dense. His gaze becomes sharp. His body becomes a temple, not of suppression, but of sovereign electricity. And those around him feel it before he speaks, before he moves. They feel it in their instincts, in their breath, in their primal knowing. Here is a man who has dominion over himself. You cannot fake this. You cannot imitate this. You must become this. You must suffer through your old pattern long enough to die to it. You must deny the reaction, not in hatred of it, but in revelation that it no longer matches your name. And in that denial, not of desire, but of leakage, you are reborn. Reborn not as a man who is trying to control lust, but as a man who commands energy, because that is all lust is, energy without assignment. A contained man walks slowly, not out of laziness, but because his presence arrives before his feet do. A contained man speaks rarely, not out of shyness, but because his tone is textured with meaning. A contained man does not need to compete, convince, or seduce, because he creates atmospheres with his inner world, and the outer world cannot help but bow. The woman feels it. She may not understand it, but she senses it. She does not see him as aggressive or flashy, but she is drawn, because the frequency in him is no longer asking to be seen. It is asking to lead. The world senses it. Doors open, not because of charm or marketing, but because his state is a commandment. His assumption is not a thought, it is a frequency thick in the air, and reality obeys. This is why the mystics called it containment. Why the scriptures spoke of the eunuch who became king. Why the sacred texts always reference the one who bridled the horse. Because in every age, the man who governs his energy becomes the master of gates. Lust, left unchecked, makes you chase. Contained lust makes the world come to you. But hear me clearly. You will be tested. You will be tempted. The body will remember the path of least resistance. The craving will disguise itself in new forms, urgency, boredom, loneliness. And every time you choose containment instead of collapse, every time you return to your identity instead of your appetite, you multiply your authority. You lengthen your breath. You thicken your voice. You deepen your reach. Because a man who contains becomes a man who commands, a man who no longer begs, a man who no longer tries, a man who no longer asks the world for permission, because he walks in remembrance. I am the vessel of divine imagination. I am the architect of legacy. I am the channel through which the fire creates. And nothing moves him anymore. Not lust, not rejection, not hunger, because he has named the fire, and therefore he has become it. You will not be left untested. Every man who dares to command his energy must pass through the wilderness again and again. The moment you begin to contain, the moment you begin to convert lust into legacy, the fire will rise. Not because you are failing, but because you are being forged. Do not mistake the return of the hunger for the return of weakness. It is not weakness, it is refinement. It is the furnace of mastery. And you, if you are who you claim to be, must walk through it untouched. You will feel it on a random night when the mind wanders and the body pulses. You will feel it when you've succeeded in one area and that old voice whispers, just one release, just one indulgence, you've earned it. You will feel it when loneliness appears disguised as memory. And in those moments you must speak, not to the urge, but to yourself. You must remember your name. You must say, I am the container. I am the throne. I am the channel, not the spill. This is where many fall. They confuse discomfort with misalignment. They confuse temptation with failure. But I tell you this, discomfort is proof that the old version is dying. And you must not rescue it. Let it scream, let it ache, let it rage and claw and beg for relief, and then let it die in the silence of your breath. Do not argue with it. Do not soothe it. Do not explain it. You are not here to negotiate with ghosts. You are here to embody the man you declared yourself to be. And embodiment requires grief, the grief of the version you no longer entertain. You will mourn him quietly. You will hear his echoes. You will feel the pull of the path you once walked, but you will not follow. You will remain. And in that remaining, in that breath of stillness, while the body begs to return to the past, you will feel something open, a gate, a current, a silence so deep it recalibrates the rhythm of your soul. And then the test becomes your proof. The urge becomes your altar, and the very fire that once consumed you becomes the fire that illumines your face. You walk out of that temptation, not smaller, but wider, not drained, but thick with voltage, and the world can feel it, even if they don't know why. Every test is a right, every urge is a door, and every time you hold your power instead of spending it, you are reborn into your divine architecture. So let the fire rise, let the pulse tremble, let the body burn, and while it rages, sit still and say, this power is mine, and it obeys me. Because the man who holds his fire creates his world in silence. Now speak this not as a plea, not as a practice, but as a pronouncement. Let it be the law of your inner court, the decree of the king within you, spoken not to the world, but to the field of consciousness that forms itself in your image. This is not a mantra to remember. This is the vibration you must become. Each morning, each night, each time the old hunger returns. You do not wrestle, you declare. Close your eyes now. Stand tall. Let your breath descend deep into the belly. Let your spine lengthen as if God himself were seated in your bones. And say this aloud in stillness, not with effort, but with knowing. I am not the echo of my past. I am the fire that shapes worlds. I no longer chase shadows, for I walk as light. I do not release energy, I command it. I do not explain myself, I embody myself. I do not seek, I assume. I do not ask, I am. My body holds power, and it obeys my word. My thoughts are servants of my vision. My desire is not a leash, it is my flame. I convert hunger into focus, tension into tone, craving into creation. Every day, I walk as the man I already am. I release the past, I release the addiction, I release the need. I move in silence because my state is louder than words. I see no opposition because I am the only